How to fix a slow and messed up metabolism? I've been asked this question a lot recently, and for a lot of people, weight loss diets are just not sustainable in the long term, and they often end up regaining the weight back, if not more than they lost in the first place. And that whole process tends to slow down your metabolism, so you end up eating fewer calories than you were eating when you started dieting. Thankfully, there are strategies we can use to restore your metabolism to the point where you might actually be able to eat more calories than you were during your entire dieting phase and still lose weight. Now, before we jump into this podcast episode of Uplifted with Soph, I just want to make the disclaimer that I am not a medical professional, so you should always consult your doctor or your coach before starting a new diet because they will know your specific situation. And I know you probably don't think about this much, but it would mean so much if you rated and reviewed the podcast and subscribed wherever you're listening, because that'll make it a lot easier for us to get on some amazing guests so that we can learn together and grow together, because that's what Uplifted with Soph is all about. In this episode, we're going to talk about why your metabolism slows down while you're dieting, why a calorie isn't really a calorie, and 2 approaches you can take to reverse dieting so that you can get your metabolism back up to speed, I guess you could say, and eat more calories without gaining back all the weight that you lost. But what actually is your metabolism? Essentially, your metabolic rate is all based around thermodynamics, and the energy equation energy in equals energy out. So energy in is pretty much just the food that you're consuming, whereas energy out is made up of a few different components. And these components include exercise thermogenesis, which is the calories you burn during exercise. Then we've got NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And these are basically the calories that you burn in subconscious activities. So things like fidgeting, doing your groceries, cleaning, stuff like that. Then we've got the thermic effect of food. And this makes up a really small part of the calories out, but essentially it's just the calories that your body burns by digesting the food that you consume. Another factor to take into account when you're looking at your metabolic rate is your hormones, because these play a massive role in metabolic adaptation, as well as your sleep, your ability to gain muscle or lose fat, as well as how well you're able to recover from your training sessions. And of course, genetics also play a role in how adaptive your metabolism is. When you drastically reduce your calories, or have been dieting for a while, or follow an extreme diet for some amount of time, your body undergoes something called metabolic adaptation. A lot of people tend to refer to this as metabolic damage, but I really don't like that term because damage implies that it's permanent, whereas metabolic adaptation is actually completely reversible. And it's a natural survival mechanism where your metabolism slows down so your body's able to conserve more energy for essential functions like breathing and digestion. This makes so much sense from an evolutionary standpoint, because when us as early humans weren't able to find food, it meant that our bodies were adapting to that, so we were conserving energy. That meant we weren't burning as many calories so we could stay alive for longer. So even though you might think having a slow metabolism is a bit annoying, it actually serves a fundamental purpose in the reason that we're here today. So when you're dieting and you reduce the calories that you're eating, your metabolism also slows down and adapts to that lower calorie intake in order to conserve energy. And the way your body does that is by adjusting elements of the energy outside of the equation. And a lot of these adjustments happen subconsciously, so you don't even know that it's happening. So things like NEAT, your body will automatically regulate itself so that you're not fidgeting as much when you have fewer calories. Similarly, things like your actual energy levels, when you're not eating as many calories, you're going to have less energy, so you're not going to be as likely to go and do workouts or stuff like that. So things like exercise thermogenesis might decrease because you just won't be wanting to go and work out. Now, if you do go and work out regardless, then that won't change as much, but you're still not going to be putting as much effort into it if you don't have the energy to do that. So that is how your metabolism sort of slows down, because of those adjustments that your body's making. You'll also obviously be burning fewer calories in digestion because you're consuming less food. And there are more factors that play into this, but those are the basic ones. So to sum that up, when you restrict your calories, all aspects of your energy output will decrease, including your physical activity and your NEAT, because your body's trying to conserve energy. Now, we all have a genetic set point for how adaptive our metabolism is, but it's better to look at this set point as more of a range than as a specific number. So people who have a larger genetic set point range for their metabolic adaptation will tend to gain more weight if they increase their calories just slightly, or lose more weight if they decrease their calories slightly. Whereas people with a smaller genetic set point range will tend to stay around the same weight whether they eat a lot more calories or a lot fewer calories. There's also another set point theory that kind of ties into this that is important to consider, and it's that your weight also has a genetic set point range. This will vary massively from person to person. Some people will tend to sit at a slightly higher weight, and some people will tend to sit naturally at a slightly lower weight. So when you lose weight and fall below that genetic set point range, then your body starts to compensate for that, and it'll activate mechanisms to bring you back within that range. In this case, the people with the smaller genetic set point range may find it harder to maintain the results of their weight loss if they've lost weight to a point that's outside of their natural set point. And the opposite is also true. So if someone's bulked up to a weight that's above their genetic set point, then their body's going to try and compensate for that to bring them back down to where they would naturally sit. And the way your body does that is through your metabolism and your hormones. When it comes to how weight loss dieting affects your hormones, there are really three main hormones we need to consider. The first one is leptin. It's a satiety hormone that drops as you lose fat, making you feel hungrier. The second one is one that I always want to call gremlin, but it's called ghrelin. And it's a hunger hormone that increases during calorie restriction, driving your appetite higher. So while you're dieting, the changes in both of those two hormones means that you're gonna be feeling hungrier as your calories decrease. The third one to consider is cortisol, and it's a stress hormone that increases with dieting, and it can lead to insulin resistance, which slows your metabolism further. So taking these hormonal changes into account, after extreme dieting, your body might burn significantly fewer calories than it should be for its new weight. For example, a person who should technically need around 1,500 calories at their new lower weight may only actually need 1,000 calories at that weight due to the slowdown of their metabolism. For most people, eating at this lower number of calories just isn't sustainable, and they end up falling into two categories. The first one is either trying to eat at that level and then developing issues with food and other health problems because of that. Or the second and more common one is they try and stick to that for a bit, but then they give up because they realize it's not sustainable and they regain back the weight they've lost or more. And the thing is, when they regain this weight back, because their metabolism slowed down and they don't go back reversing out of their diet in the right way, when they get back to their previous weight, they might still have to be eating 500 fewer calories than they did previously before they started dieting. Okay, so you may have heard people say that a calorie isn't actually a calorie, and this is a very nuanced conversation, but I thought it was pretty important to bring up. So essentially, the calories you eat aren't actually the amount of calories that your body truly absorbs and uses. And that's down to a few things. The first one is the calories that are written on the packaging of the food that you're actually eating are legally allowed to be 20% off of the actual true value. So if you think about it, 20% can be quite a lot. So you don't actually know how many calories you are eating, even if you're tracking it. The second thing is foods that have more fiber, like things like vegetables, will take more energy for your body to digest. So this is like the thermic effect of food. And that means that your body's not actually getting all of the calories from that food because it's burning them through digestion. And it's also even more nuanced when you take a closer look at the actual macronutrients. So protein takes more energy for your body to digest than carbs or fats. Overall, it all plays out in the energy equation that we talked about earlier. But it can also lead to a bit of confusion when people actually start to think about what a calorie really is. But moving on from that, there's a lot of different approaches to reverse dieting out there, which is why working with a coach who knows you personally is so helpful and so important. But we're going to go over two of the most common methods. First of all, to give you a bit of a better idea of what reverse dieting actually is, I like to think about it as a car driving down a hill. So think of your calories on your diet as the hill. So as you get deeper into your dieting phase, then your calories decrease. Your metabolism is the car driving down the hill. So whether you do your dieting phase quickly or slowly, you're still going to be decreasing your calories as the car drives down the hill. So the lower down the car gets, the slower your metabolism gets. Reverse dieting is essentially like hitting the brakes on the car and reversing back up the hill. So you're increasing your calories slightly, and in turn your metabolism is also going to increase. But the speed at which you go about increasing your calories again is really important, because you don't want to do it too slowly, because that just ends up dragging out your dieting phase unnecessarily, and it can lead to a lot more problems in the long run. But if you do it too quickly, that can also end up with a lot of fat regain, and you can end up exactly where you started. The main aim of a reverse dieting phase is to get your calories back up to the highest maintenance they can be. So when I say the highest maintenance, I mean you're increasing your metabolic rate so you're able to maintain your weight on a higher number of calories. The first common approach to doing this is going straight from the end of your dieting phase to your new maintenance calories. Note that I'm saying your new maintenance calories because these will not be your final maintenance calories since your body's adapted, and this is why working with a coach is so important because they can help you figure everything out. So first you need to work out what your new maintenance calories actually are, and I do explain this a bit more in depth in another YouTube video, so I'll link that below. But essentially you can easily just type in all your details in an online calorie calculator and it'll spit out an estimate of what your maintenance calories should be. Note that if your metabolism has slowed down, then this may skew how accurate the estimate is. It could be way off. So you really need to listen to your body, maybe track your weight for a few weeks, see what happens when you eat at that number of calories, and then make adjustments depending on what happens to your weight over the weeks. Sadly, there's not really a more accurate way to do this, so it will take a bit of trial and error. So once you've got your new maintenance calories, you can start increasing that number, say by 100 calories per week or so. And then eventually you'll hit the top of your new maintenance range, and your metabolism will start to adapt to that. The second approach is personally the one I would go for, and it's a bit of a slower approach. So instead of going straight to your new maintenance calories, you start at the end of your dieting phase by increasing your calories just by 100 to 200, say, and do that over the weeks, like increase it by 100 or so per week, and eventually you'll work your way back up to your new maintenance. And throughout that time, your metabolism will be adapting to the gradual calorie increases, and you can keep doing that until you get your calories to the top of your maintenance range. You know you've hit the top of your range when your weight starts to increase. So if your weight's just staying the same, you're still at maintenance, but if your weight starts to increase over the weeks, then you're eating just above maintenance. So using these approaches in the right way will encourage your body to start functioning more efficiently and encourage metabolic adaptation. But you also need to remember to be looking at other factors in your lifestyle and routine, like how much cardio are you doing, are you getting all your micronutrients in, because like the amount of cardio you do can directly affect your metabolism. Because for example, if you're doing a lot of cardio, excessive amounts of cardio, then your metabolism is going to adapt to that. So it's going to stay at a slower rate to conserve energy because you're spending so much doing cardio. So that's going to make it harder for your metabolism to actually speed up and improve as you go on your reverse dieting phase, because your body's constantly trying to conserve energy because of the other exercise you're doing. Now, I'm not saying cut out cardio completely because it is very important for heart health, but I'm just saying make sure you're not doing excessive amounts of cardio because that could be holding you back. One thing that is guaranteed to speed up your metabolism though is the amount of muscle mass you have. So if you gain more muscle, you will naturally burn more calories. That's because muscle tissue burns more calories than fat tissue. So if you have more muscle, that means you're going to burn more calories. That means you'll be able to eat more calories because your metabolism will be faster. So obviously resistance training is going to play a huge role in that, and lifting in a way that's going to promote hypertrophy will be really helpful to help increase your metabolism. But you also need to remember that building muscle takes time, so just going to the gym for one session isn't going to have much of an impact on your metabolism, but I've got a lot more videos on my YouTube channel that can help you out with that. When you reach the end of your reverse dieting phase and you're happy with the number of calories that you're eating at maintenance, you've either got two options. One, you can just keep eating at those maintenance calories and that's pretty much it. Or number two, you can actually start doing a lean bulking phase. And this is personally what I'm currently doing because I'm aiming to build muscle, and muscle's built most easily in a caloric surplus. I've honestly got a lot of videos about lean bulking on my channel at this point because it's literally my life. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do an updated podcast episode on bulking because I'd be more than happy to. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys so much more than you know. And if you want your questions answered in a dedicated podcast episode of their own, just drop them in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram at sophiereidfit and you could be featured. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode, and I'll see you in the next one.